into one else, Wales through a goal, slots it beyond Fodringer, and the Millers are in front in the South Yorkshire derby. And for the first time in 42 years, Rotherham United win at Bramall Lane. On the edge of the box, the Dolphin, he can hit them, and he does. The Dolphin has scored an absolute screamer for Rotherham United. Rotherham United have secured their championship status for next season.
Do me a favour, drop me off in Rotherham.
Hello everybody, welcome back to New York Talk. The journey begins. The stress, the joy, the pain, and everything else that's in between starts on Saturday with the trip to Stoke. Because all good journeys do start, I suppose, in Stoke or something like that. With the first preview show of the season, as we look ahead to the curtain raiser. Pretty excited. Let's hope. We'll talk about what we think who's going to sign. Have they made a sign? Did we sign Andre Green before our last episode?
Yes, we did.
Can't remember.
No, after.
So we'll talk about Andre Green, the permanent sign of Andre Green, and any rumours that are coming through. And we'll talk about how we think we may set up for the game on Saturday. First of all, Danny, how are you?
I'm doing good, thank you. How are we all?
Super excited is how I'm doing. Cannot wait for the season to start. Mick, how are the excitement levels in your household?
Right.
About where I expect them to be.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
I'm too old to get excited about football. Well, that's not true, and you know that's not true.
Yeah, I did think that. Here we go. Let's go first. So let's go through the comments. People are with us, a few people with us not alive. Panawed, Terry Femby, Simon Thorns. This evening, everybody. Hope we're well and excited for Saturday. Terry Femby says, really excited. We got Andre. Yeah, that's a big one. YouTube user Gav Grundy, Dave Lawton, Steve Grundy. And the Watford fans with us saying buzzing football is back. And Jamie says evening all as well. Yeah, it was the Football League season starts Friday night with the lowly League One team against the Premier League giants at Hillsborough. So that's a good.
That's enough of that.
You are?
That's enough of that.
Yeah, that's going to be good.
Yeah, that's enough of that getting covered. Danny, we're going to see. We don't know our predictions. If anybody's watching and hasn't seen our predictions, go and have a look because we've did a lot. How are you feeling for the season? Have we predicted the predictions? But let's sort of try and take us Rotherham glasses off for a minute because everybody else in the world thinks it's pointless us turning up. To be honest, we may as well just start 2024 in League One. How are you feeling in general about the Millers going into Saturday and the season in general?
I think going into Saturday, I think it'd be a mistake to underestimate Stoke, and a mistake going in saying, oh, we've got this in the bag, look at the signings we've made, blah, blah, blah. But as a whole, I'm weirdly optimistic for this season. It seems to be one of them where, like the quote-unquote experts who have made a lot of predictions have all pegged us for going down, that like 24th, 23rd, just still in the red zone all the time. I mean, I can count on one hand how many times I've seen Rotherham staying up, and even then it's by the finest of margins from what they've said. But it's almost the way that we like it. We almost like to fly under the radar and then surprise people. And that's what I'm strangely optimistic about this season. Like, I feel as though we're going to live up to that mantle of surprising people because we have recruited smartly. We've not sort of fallen back on last season's success and really dug our heels in with trying to just reminisce with that success. We've tried to build up on it, and the signings like Cafu, Andre Green, and then the young lads as well will show how we want to take it to the next level. It's going to be a lot harder this season because of the aura that some of the clubs have brought with them. The quote unquote massive auras that some clubs have with them. Mick's got the joke. That's good. But yeah, and that's what's going to make it difficult. It's going to be like we're always going to be up against it, but we sort of live to be like that in the Championship, and that's another reason why I think we'll surprise a few. And yeah, like Terry Femby's just said, being underdog plays right into our hands. Exactly that. That's why I'm optimistic.
Yeah, we do like it when people underestimate us. I do. That's when we play our best. The irony is, Mick, if this squad had played last season, this squad would not have been anywhere near the bottom three. This squad of players would probably be sailing off into the most boring 14th place finish, 15th place finish you've ever seen. But it just emphasises the step up in quality this season. That this is arguably one of the best squads we've had pre-season on paper that we've had at this level in probably a generation. But yet we're still sat here saying it's still going to be a mega tough season.
We are, but we don't know, do we? We don't know. You've got the clubs that have come down, probably with the exception of Southampton, have got their own troubles, whether it be financial, whether it be on the pitch as well. Our Leeds, they've not been particularly pulling any trees up. In fact, all they've been doing is offloading players off the wage bill. So, we've got the massive have come up. Ipswich, who also seem to think that they're massive, have come up. But you don't know how it's going to pan out. Just because a club's got a big name, just because a club was once in the Premier League or once won the Premier League, doesn't mean that now, here in 2023-24, they're on the same level as us. They're playing in the same league as us. So I said it on the probably on the prediction show. I think last when I gave my predictions. This league is just a mad league, and everybody is tipping Leeds, Southampton, Leicester to be up there fighting for the top two. Probably, maybe not Leeds so much. Maybe Leeds for playoffs, and Rotherham, Huddersfield, and Cardiff or QPR, whoever you want to go down. So everybody's jumping on the same bandwagon.
Yeah,
it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Those predictions have as much chance coming true as turning table on its head. It's such a weird league. So I don't give it much credence, to be honest with you. It's all we'll be fine. We will be fine.
Yeah. And what I would say is the start is everything. Terry Femi says, look at the start last year we do that and then we'll do okay. We'll do a better team than last year. Yeah, I think that's if ever saw like that, we'll be fine because the manager will probably still be here. If we have an 8-game start and we're 8th or something like that, I don't think there's going to be such a change manager.
But I mean, the bottom line is that, Matt, that this time last year we were saying, oh look, Norwich have come down, Watford have come down, they're going to be absolutely walking away with this league. Didn't happen, did it?
No.
So it's a weird division. Division.
It's brilliant. But that's why it's good, isn't it? That's why it's the best division to be in.
Yeah.
We all want to be, we all want to touch the stars and be in the Premier League, but the Championship is the most exciting and unpredictable league in the world.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm glad to be here. Let's talk about Andre Green, Danny. Confirmed 2-year deal, not a single year deal like everybody, like all the other signings. Took a couple of days longer than we all thought, but irrelevant. It's done. How happy are you with another attacker?
Yeah, very happy. I mean, I've seen a few people say, across the socials, where the same question as last season, where are the goals going to come from for this season? And even in the preview show, Huslot sort of predicted Andre Green to do very well, purely from his exploits in pre-season. And I think he is the type of attacker that is going to complement Jordan Hugill as well. And so, yeah, I'm really happy with Andre Green. I mean, he showed flashes of the potential he had whilst he was at Villa. The goal he scored against Sheffield United when they came back from 3-0 down in 8 minutes or something silly. And then scored against Sheffield United for us. Good lad in claiming the goal as well. And it was meant as a goal and not a cross. Good lad. But yeah, I mean, not to put too much pressure on Andre Green, but he's sort of been brought in to bolster an attack where we like Jordan Hugill because he's, the hard man up front and contributes with goal. We've got Kelly, who was the quote-unquote club golden child for what he did at Gillingham and from last season as well with some important goals. So he sort of comes into that with a lot of high expectation. But again, I think he's going to live up to it. He's a sort of player that will feed off it and contribute with the goals. And I'm actually quite excited that he's here. like when we found out he was on trial with us, it was how is he on? And that's what sparked my question to Matt Taylor. Like, did we go to him or did he come to us for the trial? And it sort of paid off for everybody. And now he's a Rotherham United player, and for a couple seasons. So if he does well this season, might get an extension on top of that extra year. If not, then it's it's a smart business idea. But I'm really excited for Andre Green. I really, really hope it's the ground running. And Matt Taylor's already said we want to bring in another attacker. So it's sort of feeding into Taylor's whole thing of sort your defence out and then go and sort out your attack. Sort the defence out with re-signing the key players from last season, and now the attack's sort of getting fresher. So it's like fresh players, fresh ideas up top, but keeping with the same ideology that they work hard and they chip in where they can. And I think Andre Green is the player to do that. Even though he's taken Chio's old number, it's a completely different ball game with him being a number 11. And not to put money on it, but I have a hunch Green's going to score the first goal of our season.
Fair enough.
It's an interesting story, Andre Green, isn't it? When you think about it, I mean, I'm not sure whether I've heard this story before. A Premier League player who couldn't really cut it in the Premier League, couldn't for whatever reason wasn't able to make first team in his early 20s, so went to play abroad, and then came back to little old Rotherham United. I've not really heard that story before. Oh, sorry, wait, I have, haven't I? Yeah. And look at how that turned out. Listen, he's gone away, and he's gone away, and he's learned his trade, hasn't he? He's kind of earned his stripes, if you like. And my understanding, I mean, I've read. So my understanding is that he wants to settle in this area. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But I'm quite excited for him. He's a prospect, isn't he? There's no doubt he's a prospect. It's whether or not, like Cam Humphreys, were a prospect.
Yeah, I've got so much respect for for players that do that. You see players in England who really struggle to settle down in the Premier League, in the Championship, and they'll just sort of drop down. They'll just continue dropping down. You'll see random players in National League, and he's still playing. But he took a massive leap. It's not like he's gone to America, which is an English-speaking country and very easy, so maybe a transition. He's gone to an Eastern European country, which is nowhere near home. And I've got so much respect for somebody to go and try that and do that and be a success. It's not like he went over there and played 3 games. And you would do a George Hurst, went to Belgium, and it didn't work out for him, and it hasn't worked out to now. I've so much respect for, and the players that Cam Humphreys, as you mentioned, Rick, did that as well. It just shows the willingness to learn, try something different, and the determination. He's not giving up. He's determined to revive his career, and I think that shows a lot about his character, which is exactly what Rotherham United is, isn't it? Really, yeah. We're a team and a club that's built on character, really. So I really hope, for his sake and our sake, that it goes well. I feel like it's a bit of a free hit for both clubs, for both us and him, Danny, because if it don't go very well, he's on a relatively short-term contract. I can't imagine he's on 15 grand a week, and if it goes badly, he can go somewhere else, whether it's lower league England or back abroad. If it works out really well, we've got an extra year on there, and the sky's the limit. So, and it feels like a really good, almost risk-free for both.
Yeah, it like I say, it sounds like it's a smart bit of business. He's come in, impressed on trial. I think to have had another player on a 1-year deal would have been a bit silly, because that's even more to sort out next summer. So to have 2 years, like you say, it's a bit of security for us. Like if he has a brilliant season, we've got that extra year. If he doesn't have a brilliant season and is sort of steady and we decide to cash in, or he wants to go elsewhere, we still have that year option for a bit of money for us, but also B, not leaving on a free either. But then also at the same time, like you say, if he does have a stinker, which in my opinion is unlikely, it's still not a massive waiting game to offload him because it's not worked out. But yeah, I think 2 years sounds about right. I think a 3-year contract purely based on a trial period would have been a bit strong. But then I think a year wouldn't have been enough either, because it's not really enough to let him show what he can do. Yeah. So 2 years sounds about right for a trialist, I think. But then again, it is Andre Green, who came from Villa's ranks, like quite highly sort of. Didn't quite work out for him. Made a bit of a name for himself in Slovakia, and then has come back to England wanting to settle. So I think we're as keen for him to do well as he is. We think we'll make it all work out nicely for everybody.
Yeah, I agree. Let's move on to just the general striking picture, Mick. Sam Darby says can't see us scoring much this season, and I see people have this opinion. I don't really understand it, because if you just go through what we've got, you've got Georgia Kelly, who's going to score goals. He's going to get at least 5 this season. Just if he plays 10 games as sub, he'll still probably score 5. You're in Georgia. You've got John Hugel, who scored 5 goals in less than half a season when he wasn't fully fit. I accept a couple of those were penalties, but he still scored 5 goals in less than half a season. You've got Andre Green, who was saying will give us a stats last night, is roughly a 1 in 3 striker. That doesn't include Ollie Rathbone, who also has got a very good hand in goals. And I can't remember how many goals he got last season, but there's goals in Ollie Rathbone. There's an odd goal in Cafu.
There's a goal in Ben Wiles.
There's a goal in Ben Wiles. There's going to be a goal in Sean Morrison from set pieces. I'm not really worried, to be honest with you.
I don't think I am either. I mean, it would be nice to bolster that striking department, but nevertheless, I'm not too concerned about it. I'm not. I don't. It's difficult because you look at the quality. I think, and it's all about opinions, isn't it? It's got to be about opinions, because we've never, with the exception of a couple of friendlies, we've not really seen them play together, or the individuals play. So you're kind of going off a very sort of small sample size, if you like, aren't you? But nevertheless, I'm really excited by the players that have come in, and I don't see there being an issue per se with any particular department, whether it be striking, midfield, or defence. It's the key for me is whether we're going to be able to get it right tactically, which I think is where we fell down when we had that slip up or low period in the last season, and whether we can just maintain a little bit of consistency. You know as well as I do, you both know as well as I do, and everybody listening does. You string a series of results together in this division, and you're away. You're done. You're away from that bottom and unlikely to get back down there unless you string a similar number of defeats together, which doesn't generally happen. Anybody in this division that can strike up any sort of consistency moves away from that relegation zone pretty quickly. For me, that's where we need to be looking. But yeah, scoring goals, I'm not too worried about. Conceding, I'm far less worried about than I've ever been. I don't want to tempt fate, obviously, but it just the defence feels so much stronger. So I'm not at this stage. I'm not concerned till 5 o'clock on Saturday. Then I will be.
Yeah. Well, exactly. Let's sort of move on to Saturday in a bit more specific details, Danny, by sort of talking about the news that's come out today, which is the confirmation of club captain. That is Sean Morrison. Ollie Rathbone had the captain's armband in Richard Wood's absence, so it was never actually captain. It just had the armband. Same with Jordan Hugel. Wasn't actually captain. He just had the armband when other players weren't available. For me, this is a shoo-in. I think it's a very smart decision, probably a very easy decision, because he just looks like a guy similar to Richard Wood. I just want to follow him into battle, really.
Yeah, it just sort of makes sense. He was Cardiff's captain whilst he was there before he suffered his injury. It just seems like the captain sort of type. It's like the next man up from Woody, like you said, effectively, like next man up, and he takes the armband. It's nothing against Ollie or Hugel. I think they were great when they were captains, even with Wilesy as well. They led the line when called upon, and I think if you were to look at it in one aspect, like even though Morrison's the captain, I'd say like Ollie, Hugel, and Wiles are like the lieutenants of the club. If you want to look at it that way, like if Morrison isn't available, it's one of them three who's going to be with the armband. But yeah, I'm happy that Morrison's the captain. I'd be a bit happier if he was on a longer contract with being club captain, but that might be something to look at in the future, even though he's only here for a year initially. on his current deal, that might get extended if he stays fit. And if that's the case and he wants to stay here, then fantastic. We might have a longer progressional club captain like we did with Woody.
Yeah. Millie says, what about a Rathbone will be number 2 for the captain? Seems logical based on the frequency and friendly. Yeah, as far as I'm aware, I think I'm right in saying he's vice captain. Officially, is vice captain, which makes perfect sense because we saw last season, Mick, we Ollie, that he doesn't look the most vocal on the pitch, to be honest with you. No. I don't see him organising, but he just leads by example. He just, right, I'm going to run hard and do this with me.
Yeah.
He just seems that kind of guy to follow. I follow him, but for a different way and a different reason to show Morris. That makes sense.
You're right. He leads by example, doesn't he? Absolutely, he does, and he's obviously got that infectious personality as well. So which obviously helps. So yeah, no-brainer for Morrison, and then realistically, it's a no-brainer for Ollie as well. Like you said, probably a reasonably easy decision for Matt Taylor to make that. He's Morrison's he is a Richard Wood type character, isn't he? So yeah, easy peasy that one.
Very. So let's move forward. Then we've got Saturday coming up. Let's look at how we think we're going to set up. For me, there's only one way we can set up. We ain't got any wingers, so it's going to have to be a 3-5-2. I can't see a way around that. Really, you got Fred as a right winger. I think that's it as far as I can work out. Thoughts, Danny?
Oh, okay. Yep. Sorry. I mean, yeah. Well, I'll use that excuse anyway. I mean, yeah, I can see where you're coming from. We don't have out and out wingers per se, but we certainly have the players here to certainly play with like advancing wing backs and playing that sort of system. Like we can have Bramwell on the left hand sides, like he's very good up and down the flank. And then, like you say, with Onyedinma, is that how you say it, Onyedinma?
I think so.
Let me know if I've butchered that in the comments, by the way. But with those two out wides, like Fred's got the pace on the right hand side. We saw that against Lincoln and how he just bombed forward, but was also able to bomb back. Same with Dexter as well. He's got that raw pace that is really beneficial on the wings, regardless if you play wing backs or out and out wingers. I personally thought Fred was up front in a 3 against Lincoln, but he sort of lined up wider than I thought. So, and then Bramwell was a bit further forward. So maybe that's the compensation. Maybe that's your 5 in midfield where it is more winger-based wing backs and just your central 3 at the back. But I do think how we lined up against Lincoln is probably the dress rehearsal of how we're going to line up against Stoke. Maybe with Green in instead of Kelly. But
what, 4-4-2 or 4?
I think it was a 3-5-2.
Okay.
I think. But yeah, I think it will be Bramwell and Onyedinma on the wide areas until we either A, get more bodies in, or B, some players can fill in either or. Which isn't the best, but we've sort of got Fred and Dexter on the right side, and then we've got Bramwell on the left side. Ferguson's not too far away, so that could end up being your left side sorted. But the way it's shaping up now, and the fact that we've not signed out and out wingers, we've sort of signed more wing back orientated players. It does sound like it's going to be that midfield 5 this season, which we've played with before in the Championship, and it sort of went well for us. As long as it's not a 5-4-1, which was like the curse of the previous management in the Championship with your one central striker, we should see that formation bear fruit, or at least fingers crossed it does.
You've got Andre Green and Mick, who seems pretty mobile, to be honest, so it wouldn't surprise me to potentially see Andre Green as not a central striker. So if we saw Matt Taylor seem to like 4-3-3 last season, whether that was just to get Gio in his right position, I don't know. But with 4-3-3 with Onyedinma on the right and maybe Andre Green as a left prong of that 3 could be an option. I don't know enough about Andre Green to sort of maybe say that, but he does seem quite mobile, doesn't he?
He does, and I see him more perhaps sitting in that number 10 role just behind Hugo, maybe maybe a 3-5-1-1. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. That's how he struck me. But again, I've no evidence for it, have I? You know, you just sort of. It's just really difficult to tell. But I'd certainly be looking at starting those two up front to start with on Saturday. I don't think Matt Taylor's approach is going to be anywhere near the same as previous management, or even, to be fair, the last season's approach to away games, which was basically just dig in, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Paul Warne started that sort of process of going away from home and digging in and trying to battle out a draw, and Matt Taylor kind of carried that on a little bit at last Stoke City away last season. You know, so I don't think we're going to see that this year. Certainly not to start with. I would hope anyway. He seems to be a manager who wants to go out and win games, not necessarily, just sort of play the percentages and see if we can get a point. So I suspect he will go to up top, certainly at the beginning of the season anyway. And those are the two I think he'll start with.
John S says Green has played left wing in his career. Someone said, plays left, so that would potentially work. Will says, it's the new season when you can't pronounce a player's name. We're back.
I mean, that was just standard for me, isn't it? Like I kept calling JJ KO'd, but it's KO'd A. I now know. There's emphasis on the E, but I didn't know that. But anyway, that's just me. Well, they're back to me saying Rathbun next. Bet you.
Yeah. Speaking of players, we're not sure how to pronounce the name. Liam Bates says, if we signed Chris as a sort of a deep line midfielder, does that signal the end of a Dauphin? So my understanding, Danny, is that Chris is not that kind of player. Rathbun's a bit more physical, and to be fair, Dauphin never played as a deep line midfielder under Matt Taylor. It was much more have that freedom, go and roam, go make an absolute nuisance of yourself. So I'm hoping, I'm praying that's not the end of a Dauphin, because they've got so much to offer us.
Yeah, I think the same as well. I think the one thing I can sort of see from the midfield is that the only one that isn't really, in my opinion anyway, isn't really going to be played as your sort of flatter midfield is probably Wiles. I think he's going to be your more advanced midfielder, and he's just going to roam about just behind the attackers. And the rest is going to be a sort of almost like a rotational basis. Like you'll have Rathbone, you'll have Lindsay, a Dauphin, Cafu, and is it Taihi?
Taihi, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm going to end up calling him Tiki or something, aren't I? Because we can't say Christ, because that's blasphemous. That's what my mum's told me anyway. But yeah, anyway, so the new guy, shall we say, I think he's almost been brought in to be like the midfield distributor, which was sort of Barlas's game, but I never thought Barlas had played that deep a sitting role. He was still next to Rathbone, but they almost like sort of in the attack. Rathbone went further forward, and Barlas then he sat back and looked for the pass. I think that's almost going to be the new guy's game as well. The one person I do still feel sorry for is Lindsay, because it's like, where does Lindsay come into it? He's like Lindsay, Rathbone's replacement, and that's that substitute. Yeah. Or I'm not sure, to be fair, but it's better to have that headache than just to have three midfielders and you have to play those three midfielders. But yeah, I'm just going to go out of way and call him Taihi until someone says no. But I think Taihi will be the distributor. But can you imagine a midfield of Taihi, Cafu, Rathbone, and then with Wiles slightly more advanced of them? Like, that sounds scary. And then you've still got a Dauphin and Lindsay on the bench to impact the game later on, or switch out and have a Dauphin start and then maybe bring Taihi on later on in the game to really stretch the play when everyone's a bit tired. You can see where the plan starts to come together, but you can also see where the headache comes from it as well. Like he's just said, I'd rather have the headache than not. I'd rather have a headache rather than just go, right, so the midfield three is going to be Rathbone, Cafu and Wiles week in, week out until one of them is injured, and then we change formation. So I like to have the headache. It's better to have more of something and explore all the options available rather than just go, well, it has to be him, doesn't it?
Yeah. I think we're certainly midfield. They've got bags of options, to be fair, to play a few different types of midfield and some central defence as well.
It allows us to be flexible. That's what it is.
Very flexible. Yeah, definitely.
And I think that's been an issue for us in the Championship in the past, where we've not been flexible. We've sort of been very rigid in our approach, whereas this we can sort of come at it all different ways and still chop and change things during a game and not be so wooden pole for a spine, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, we've gone from having a wooden pole spine to like a slinky spine, and that better suits the Championship.
Yeah, it does. I agree completely. Will says, I only quickly read about Paul Davis and Lindsay's a few weeks away. I'm not sure it's a few weeks away, Lindsay, but is he a few weeks away, do we think? I can't. I'm not. There's him, Eves, and Ferguson, who are all three out. Certainly out for Saturday anyway. Grant Hall obviously has a hamstring issue. He is unlikely for Saturday, which is a shame. But that's why he signed Morris, and that's why he signed Tyler Blackett. That's why he re-signed Hall here.
Although, from what Paul Davis said, we're willing to wait right up until Saturday morning to decide if Hall's fit or not. So, again, that shows how key Hall is into it, but also shows that we've got options.
Yeah. No, exactly. It absolutely does. So let's move on to Mick's favourite part, EFL stuff, PGML, refereeing update kind of things. We've already talked to death about the time added on the situation. Unless you guys have anything to add on that one, I'll just recap it. So basically, add time on for goals scored, substitutions, cards, injuries, more rigidly, essentially. So fully expect 10 minutes injury time, 10 plus minutes injury time from every game. This is not going to be, in an isolated thing. It'll be every single game, hopefully. Gareth Haynes is already quite unhappy about that, which is just delicious. Just tastes so sweet on the eve of the season. Before we do have to talk about it, do you guys have any issues with it? Let's assume it's going to be implemented correctly. Do you have any issues with this new idea of tackling time wasted?
I have no issues with it whatsoever. In principle, it's a great idea. Should have been done a long time ago. Let's wait and see whether it happens. Yeah. Everybody else knows that it won't be done consistently. So,
let's see. Danny?
Yeah, we will. We will. And it's again, every season, we come up with a new initiative, and by 6 or 7 games in, it's all gone by the wayside. So hopefully this one sticks. But again, we've said that every season. We've been doing this podcast, haven't we? And none of them have yet.
Even before that, no.
Yeah, well, yeah. but I can't think of a single one where the early season initiative is actually stuck.
No, I can't. Fair.
So,
this is almost a rule change, and it's not technically a rule change, but there is guidelines to it. There are, I ain't got it in front of me because I read it and forgot about it, obviously. But there is set things where the game has to be stopped and timed for. So it does seem a real strong emphasis on this.
You read it and forgot about it. Why does that sound like most referees in the EFL this season? But yeah, it's like a rule change, but like in disguise. Weirdly, like it's almost bringing in stopping the clock without stopping the clock. I mean, look at what's happening with the Women's World Cup. Which game was it? Was it England against China where they had like 11 minutes added time? And
Germany had about 14.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that'll be us because quite a fair chunk of that is VAR decisions as well. Because I think we took like 3 minutes to decide on a decision for England, whether it were a goal or not. So I don't think that'll come in with us, like with time wasting and substitutes and celebrations and stuff. It'll certainly mount up, and like Millie says, it's interesting how it stands with levels like fitness levels to play at 100 minutes plus. So to say they're now conditioning players to play 100 minutes worth of football shows how big of a rule change it is. Like we could be seeing Burnley levels of added time every single match day, but hopefully not playing Burnley time or next goal winner, which is what we actually played at Burnley. But then, like Will says, why not just stop the clock? Like, why not switch it to rugby rules where if the ball goes out of play, the clock is stopped? it's an interesting point. And the more football is moving forward and trying to combat time wasting, we could end up seeing that. But like I said, it almost feels like the rule change in disguise, where they want to see what it's like stopping the clock without actually having someone press stop on the clock.
I don't think you can stop club football. Rugby works because when the ball goes out of play, you've got to wait. You can't just throw the ball straight back in rugby. There's a set, that you've got to line up and throw it out properly or whatever.
Yeah, there's more of a sideline routine.
Yeah. Whereas football, if it goes out for a throw, it could be back in within seconds, or it could take 2 minutes. I don't think it's as easy to stop the clock in football, but in theory, this should solve those problems. We will wait and see. That's right. VAR helps. Also helps the multi-ball system back, which I am a big fan of as well. They should never get rid of. That was stupid to get rid of in the first place. This is different to the original one. If you've been to a pre-season friendly, you'll have seen it. There's about 10 balls dotted around the pitch on like a cone. And there are ball boys, which from my understanding is the ball boys are instructed to pass the ball to the player when the player asks for it or something similar to that. So that should solve a lot of time wasting issues as well. We'll see. We will see. There's also been an added stress on player behaviour, which is coming in as well. They want to stop the referees being surrounded. Again, from my understanding, is if every time a referee is surrounded by a bunch of players, the referee will book at least one of those players. That's how I was explained to me on telly. So we'll see. Again, that fits right into the category of that'll do it for 3 weeks, and then the fourth week they'll forget all about it and they'll be back around doing it again. It'll be just daft.
That's the obvious one to suffer the chop after 2 or 3 games, isn't it? Whereas realistically, it's the one that most reasonably shouldn't.
Absolutely.
So referees need to take charge of games, and that's one of the ways of doing it, isn't it? So, let's wait and see on that. We know what we're going to get in the Championship. I can't see it being much different to the way it has been over the past few years. I guess, you think about it, I suppose in reality, the referees in the Championship just mirror the football teams in the Championship, don't they? Inconsistent, sometimes good at the job, sometimes not. It kind of mirrors the league itself. So we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, well, John Busby is the referee for Saturday. He refereed us at least twice last season. Most recently refereed us against Reading, away at Reading with the 2 late goals. No hours. He made a mistake in the West Brom game. I would give him West Brom a penalty for the 3rd goal. But one mistake out of 2 games is a pretty good record compared to other referees that are still refereeing in the coming season. Moving away from refereeing side of things, there is an increase in the amount of substitutes on the bench. That's increased from 7 to 9, which will allow more players on the bench. You still allow 5 substitutions in 3 occasions. I don't know if that's one of the reasons, Danny, sort of thinking out loud a little bit, that the loan market's been so slow. Because if all the FL clubs have got 2 extra players, they've got to fill the bench, which means they're less likely to let any youngsters go out because they might need them for 10 minutes every couple of weeks.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, actually. And it's sort of changed it now to a match day 20 rather than your stereotype of the match day 18. So, maybe clubs are sort of hanging on to their younger players, like you say, and not exploring the loan market until they bring in the players to fill their own bench, and then they'll send them out on loan. So with that way of thinking, we might see the loan market probably picking up after the 20th of August. And that's when it will really start kicking off, if you'll pardon the pun, with the loan market. But yeah, it's interesting how, back in the older times of football, how there were no substitutes at all. And then it started creeping in with like 1 and then 3, and then you could have a full bench. And now through COVID, we've bumped it up to 5. And now we're still with 5, but even more players on the bench. So it's almost like more of a packing out of a squad. I'm all for it because it actually reduces the chance of injury, having more players available on a rotational basis. But it's just interesting to see how football evolves with it, for me anyway.
On the flip side of that, Danny, what it also does is benefits the teams with the biggest budgets.
Yeah, that's true as well.
You know, there's you know your likes of Leicester and Leeds and whoever else came down with them, Southampton. You know, they can pack their bench with 9 players who will probably get first team spots in most Championship clubs because they can. You know, so it does benefit clubs like that as well. So, but they can still only put 5 of them on pitch. So,
yeah. And the other thing is Millie and John S. saying, following videos of Rotherham fans, you can't use clothing to dry the ball, any outside object. It's a pointless and bit stupid rule, but blame Wes. That's what I say.
Are we banning? Is that right? Are they banning the towels as well then?
Not sure on that, to be honest. I know it's outside stuff. So, for example, a jumper wouldn't be possible. I'm not sure on towels, to be honest. Don't know.
Have you seen the thing where they're on about incorporating dry material into football shirts so players can just use the shirt and carry on with it? I've seen that floating about a couple of times.
Love that. Moving on. Stoke on Saturday. There is a scouting report coming up of Stoke tomorrow. That'll be out on the YouTube channel if you want to watch a 10-15 minute jobby listing about Stoke's close season and the positivity that's rolling around Stoke City at the moment. Mick, 10 or so signs they've made. They could be in for a half decent season, which is going to make Saturday a very tough start.
Yeah, it is. It's going to be a tough start. We're always going to. Stoke's a tough place to go anyway. I personally have not taken a massive amount of interest in who they signed. So we'll have to wait and see how that pans out. But you know, Alex Neil being Alex Neil, he'll be setting them up, won't he, for the long ball. So hopefully that'll come and bite him in backside. But you know, you're bringing 10. If you are bringing 10 new players in, you know, you ain't going to get a top-notch performance from them the first game out. So maybe if as 1 or 2 people are suggesting that Stoke might be dark horses this season, first day of the season might be a better time to play them. Might not, of course, but that first day always throws up some wild results, doesn't it? You know, some sort of real unusual results. So fingers crossed it'll be a 4-0 Rotherham win away at Stoke. But yeah, it's the same as us. You know, we're sitting here trying to make a judgment on a team that we know even less about than we know about ours. We don't know a great deal about ours because it's a virtually new squad. So we'll have to wait and see. But it's going to be a tough game. Always is there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's about 1,500 tickets are sold from us. I think they're still on sale. They're not on sale till the day. There's no pay on the day. But if you fancy a trip to Stoke, I'm sure it's lovely. Danny, on our so let's try and predict a setup and formation. I'll go first because this is easier. Victor's going to start in goal, I think.
Yeah,
pretty confident on that one. So do you reckon 3 centre halves then is going to be the start?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we've sort of seen Humphreys playing on the right sides of the 3 during pre-season, and we're more used to him playing on the left-hand sides from last season. So that's an interesting little shake-up, but, you know, it's happened for a reason. And as the memes keep saying, let Taylor cook because he's making something. So, yeah, I think it's going to be a back 3 of Humphreys, Morrison and Blackett, I think.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm quite excited about making it. And this is purely based on the 3rd goal at Lincoln. But the Cam Humphreys, the right-hand side of that 3... Yeah. He's probably been handicapped playing left of a 3 or left centre back of a 2. He's obviously right-footed. He's obviously very technically a very, very good player. I'm interested to see if that was a one-off or whether there's a plan here.
Yeah, I am as well. Do you know, even as that move was happening, you know, he saw Cam Humphreys sort of come forward and then stop and think about it a bit and the kind of thing. It was almost as he thought, oh yeah, I can do this. I'm allowed to do this. And he made that run and obviously set up the goal. Got the assist for it, so he's definitely got the ability to do that without a shadow of a doubt, no question. And I just wonder whether that switch to the right hand side has got something to do with it. I hope it has, because that'd be great to see. Because it adds another string to our bow. We know how good he is at stepping out of defence anyway.
Yeah,
with the ball. and he can pick a pass. So why not? It seems like another kind of no-brainer, doesn't it? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it does.
So we'll have to wait and see how that develops, if it develops at all. But hopefully it will.
Yeah, famous for Sheffield United, didn't it? They
Yeah.
got promoted playing the overlapping centre backs. Now, obviously, that wasn't an overlapping run, but some similar principle. Right hand side, let's assume I agree, Danny, they're going to be attacking fullbacks, attacking wing backs. I don't think they'll be out wingers, but is that Fred and Cohen and Bramall for you, or do you think Dexter gets in there?
I think, using the example that Lincoln was like the dress rehearsal for the Stoke game, I think it is going to be Fred on the right hand side. Like, even though Dexter is like the young prodigy from Wolves, and he's got a bit of Premier League experience in there as well. Maybe he's not quite ready to be just sort of thrown in at the deep ends with it. So that's why I think it's going to be Fred on the right and then Bramall on the left hand side, which is pace to burn on the flanks, by the way. Like that sounds scary to line up against. I wouldn't like that if I was in a midfield or a defence against them, because they'll just run past you. Like Cohen's one of the fastest players at the club. Fred's got afterburners on him as well. I do like the idea of him and Dexter rotating through the game just to keep it fresh on that right hand side. But yeah, I do think Fred's going to start.
It's quite exciting, that pace, Mick. It's on the right hand side. Obviously, we're talking about Fred on Dinamo. He played basically, from my understanding, he played basically wing back for Luton. And as much as Chio was a great player, an amazing player, you couldn't play a 3-5-2 with Chio because you would have to play him as a right wing back, which he was okay at in League One, or a striker. Whereas Fred Dimmer can clearly play as a right wing back, and he's got that pace, so you don't really lose anything. So it's obviously not an upgrade, but in terms of positional sense, it might help us more.
I think if you're looking for a right wing back, it's an upgrade. And it's an upgrade because, with the greatest respect to Chio, he had to adapt to playing wing back. It wasn't his game, and he was kind of made into that by Paul Warne. So he is a more defensive player than Chio, quite clearly. But he's played that role at this level for at least a season, probably more. So yeah, overall, I guess it's not an upgrade, but that's irrelevant, really, isn't it? It's for that position. It probably is. I've just said that about 3 times now, haven't I? The same thing 3 times. Maybe I should become a politician.
Maybe you should. Yeah. It will be Bramall. I think the only left-sided player is Bob Blackett, who I think we all agree will probably be centre half, and Talaji Bowler, who is at best 3rd or 4th choice, sadly for him. So he almost certainly will be Cohen Bramall. I picked him as my breakout player this season, so hopefully he has a storming game. Midfield 3, Danny. A lot to pick from. Would, again, using the Lincoln game as some example, Cafu, Wiles, Rathbone, do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think because Tahi's still a little bit up in the air with the work permit and stuff, it might get done in time, but then, will he have had time to bed in with the squad? He's watched games, but he's not been involved with them, if that makes sense. Like Paul Davis is saying that he's in Rotherham and he's been to games. Yeah. But he's not been with the squad, if that makes sense. So I don't think, even if he was announced tomorrow, he'd be in contention. Lindsay's out injured at the minute. So it leaves you to pick through Cafu, Wiles, Rathbone and Odoffin. And unfortunately for Odoffin, I think Cafu comes in and Wiles and Rathbone are your other two. Again, based off the dress rehearsal with Lincoln, it might be that Odoffin starts and Wiles gets benched, for example. But I just can't see it, if I'm being honest. I think Odoffin will come in later in the game and still have that, that powerful impact. I could see Cafu coming out for Odoffin later in the game. Yeah. And now that we've got more substitutes, we can actually accommodate that now. But yeah, my starting 3 is definitely Cafu, Wiles, Rathbone.
Yeah. If Chris signs, I suspect he might be on the bench. Again, because you've got that 9 subs, you can do that and put him on for the last 10 minutes, get some game time. We've got the Morecambe game coming next week, so I'd be desperate to sign him before that game so you can get 90 minutes next week or something similar for that one. Mick, are you similar to Danny? Again, with what's available, I think that is the best 3.
Yeah, I think so. And it does get, like you say, it does give you some options off the bench as well as things stand at the moment. But yeah, without a doubt, I'm surprised. I was very surprised to see how well Cafu and Ollie Rathbone play together. I don't know why. They just seem. I want to say similar kind of players. You know, they're combative midfielders, aren't they? But they both offer something very, very different. So yeah, I can't see anything different in that midfield at all, to be honest with you.
Which means the last big decision, Danny, is then the top to front two. Do you go Hugo Kelly, Hugo Green? Do you maybe bring Wiles further forward and put a Doffin in the middle and move Wiles here as a proper number 10? This is the big unknown for me, to be honest.
Yeah, it is for me as well, and you've got me rethinking what formation I'm lining up with. Thank you. I mean, again, it just shows how much flexibility we've got. Yeah. You know, the flexibility to even consider Wiles you're playing further forward and it not really damage the team and like take a block out of midfield, because let's face it, Cafu's as big as two blokes anyway. So it gives us that chance to not faff about with it, but be more flexible with it. I mean, just doing my formation now. I mean, yeah, you could play, say, your three at the back, and then you have Fred on the right, Cohen on the left, and your midfield's more two with Cafu and Rathbone, and then have Wiles slightly more further forward. So that gives him the run across the middle, but also have your wing back sort of on the overlap beyond Wiles and into the wider places, and then your front two. I do think it'll be more of a thing of a front two, unless we sort of play Fred further forward and push Green further out wide. Yeah. So then it could be like a 3-4-3 almost. Again, flexibility, but I do think for the start of the season, again, basing off what happened with the Lincoln game, I do think it's going to be Hugo and Green up top. I think that would have been the plan if Green hadn't already played his 2 games as a trialist. Yeah. And we sort of brought Kelly into it. Kelly did all right as well, you know, but Kelly's always sort of quiet when he starts games. And I think Matt Taylor sees that as well. So imagine the danger teams are going to face when you've got Hugo and Green starting against you, and then you've got the bulldozer on the bench again. You know, that's going to be quite frightening. And I think that also plays into what Matt Taylor wants to do, because he still understands that Georgie is more of your impact player. And, you know, if, say, Hugo was to come off and Kelly to come on, that's, you know, still going to be quite dangerous. Even with Green coming off and Kelly coming on, that's still going to be dangerous. And, again, the 9 subs allows us to accommodate that as well. So, yeah, I think, Hugo Green to start, I think as well. I'll be more surprised if it's not those two than if it was somebody else. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. Is Hugo nailed on then, Mick? There's no question about Hugo starting, do you think?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Cool. I don't think there's any doubt about that, is there? So it's just a question of who goes up there with him. And Danny's been through just about every single option there, hasn't he? So I'm going to go for a combination of any one of the partners that Danny mentioned there for Hugo, but it'll be Green, the Andre Green.
Fair enough. Shelley says we could play 4-3-1-2 with Wiles behind Hugo and Green. That would mean put off in the 3. Yeah, certainly. I think that's the go to there's options. You could do any. You could do that. You could 3-4-3. Danny says 3-5-2, 4-3-3, whatever. There's loads and loads of options, which we've covered. Prediction time. This season, I'm going to keep a record of our predictions and laugh. We're going to open a points prediction league between us and laugh at how terrible we all are.
The New York Talk Super 6.
Basically, yeah.
In fact, that's not a bad idea. Shall we start a Super 6 league? Because you can do that, can't you?
We can do that. That's your job, Danny. You're on that, mate. You've volunteered yourself. Yeah, I haven't got a trophy for the winner, but we can figure that out. I'll give somebody a booby prize or some nonsense like that. We'll work some out as the season progresses. When it becomes clearer and clearer who's the worst at it, we'll work out what we want to do with it. So, Mick, first game of the season, the hardest game to predict out of the entire 46. What do you reckon?
Oh, God. I know, 1-1.
1-1. Boring.
Yes.
Fine. I'm going to stick with the predictions I've already done. I do go 1-0 to us. It'll be horrible. It'll be disgusting like it was last season at Stoke. It'll be hilarious when Alex Neil spontaneously combusts on the touchline. If it happens again.
Oh, that was such fun.
Danny, what do you reckon?
Well, I don't think it'll be as backs to the wall as it was last season, because that was frankly ridiculous looking back, wasn't it? But I'm going to echo what you said earlier, Mick. I think playing Stoke this early in the season, when they've signed 10 new players, they're still going to have time gelling together in a match day situation. So that could play into our favour. I've got a feel. I don't know. I've got a weird hunch. It's going to be 1-0 to us again, but will be a lot more pressing against Stoke rather than the ones being pressed.
Okay, fair enough. I'll give you the spoiler from the Stoke guy was that they expect them to press us again. They're not going to let us have a second on the ball. They would prefer us to have the ball. Work for them to have the ball pressing wise. So what do you say? 1-0, Danny?
Yeah.
Millie says 2-1 to the Millers. Simon Thor says might be a new season, but some things never changed. 3-1. Jamie says 2-1. Terry Emma says 1-0 to us, but we take a point. That's where I am, Terry. That's exactly where I am. Powerman says 1-0. YouTube Mill says 2-1 to us. John S 1-0 to us. So does Kim Hayward. Cheryl Stone says 2-1 to the Millers. Powerman says he can't see us conceding with Victor and Humphreys playing together. Yeah, I can buy that as well. Let's finish on again. Try and take your Rotherham United glasses off. Is there anything that concerns you about this season? Is there anything which you think, if this don't work, or if we don't fix this hole, we are going to be in trouble? Is there anything in there, Mick, that concerns you as it stands?
You mean from a purely Rotherham United point of view?
Yeah, that could affect our season in terms of success.
Yeah, we get a lot of injuries again, but that applies to everybody else, doesn't it? No, I'm comfortable with the way the summer's gone, and we're not finished yet. Anyway, we know that that's been made very, very clear. So, I'm comfortable. I'm really happy with the way things are going. But come Saturday night when we've had 7 pumped past us because we've gone out with a whimper. It might be completely different. Football's like that, isn't it? You put 3 or 4 great performances together and then turn up like a pub team. So, no, I'm not worried. I'm not worried at the moment. I'm certainly not worried to the extent that if I were reading if I believed anything that I read on the internet, should make me worried. You know what I mean?
Have you ever had such a contrast between what everybody else thinks, what the outside world thinks, and how the general feel? It's not just us happy clappers, Danny, is it? The general feel is very positive.
Yeah, from a Rotherham United point of view, it is. Yeah, but when you move outside of that, everybody's just saying the same thing. People are sheep now, aren't they? Somebody says something and everybody else just follows it. Whatever.
Yeah. Danny, thoughts on just any worries and just the general gist and feel?
I mean, I know I've just done the action of Mick Fishing there, but I'm weirdly inclined to agree. It almost feels like, all Rotherham fans are sort of on their own little island in the middle of the Pacific, where we know what's happening in our little bubble, but nobody else has a clue and they only assume. And the assumption is that we're going to go down without much of a fight. And I think the only case that's been true is the 16-17 season where we went down without a fight, really. But then they forget we stayed up with a game to spare last season by proper true grit, digging in, grafting out the results when we had to. And that's how we are. But I think this season, just to echo what Matt Taylor said, we want to play football the Rotherham way, but also play attractive football. And they're the players that we've brought in. We've brought in the players that you want in the trenches with you, but also play attractive football. And I think a lot of teams will be surprised by that. It's not going to be little Rotherham that lays down and lets you tickle the belly, like away from home. I'm fully expecting us to get more than 5 wins away from home this season, rather than the 2, which was an improvement anyway. But I think the overall vibe is that they've looked at, the teams with the names in the glowing lights that have come down from the Premier League and the fallen giants who have finally come up from League One, and I'm not talking about the team you all think I'm talking about. And I think they've looked at that and gone, they're going to have good seasons. That I've seen some people predicting Ipswich to get to the playoffs. It's like they don't have the pull of Sunderland, and I still think Sunderland overachieved last season as well. And then you look at like Leeds and Leicester and Southampton. Yeah, they've been in the Premier League and they've done exceptionally well, and they've got the biggest wage budgets in the league. But that doesn't automatically give you the right to be good in this division. Some teams will still surprise you. I mean, look at Burnley. So we surprised Burnley on both occasions. All right, we didn't beat them, but I think it's 12% of their goals were conceded against us. That's a mad start of someone who's just come up from the division that was 2 below you at one point. I think it's going to be the same case. We are going to surprise teams. They're not going to expect us to really come at them and attack them. I think at times Rotherham will be like a cornered animal in the Championship, where we'll win the scrappy games. And there'll be other times where we get absolutely pummeled by somebody because we just didn't turn up. But I think just to automatically label Rotherham as relegation fodder this season is probably a mistake.
Yeah.
I think people who are more inclined to label Rotherham as playoff contenders are probably a bit too ambitious, but maybe a bit brilliant. But I see this season as one to improve on the last. And that's why I've sort of bumped us up a little bit this season. I think that's Matt Taylor's vision, bump us up a little bit more. And if we do that in a season that's quote unquote a lot harder, then it's a fantastic achievement.
Yeah, it is. Palmer says his only concern is we don't get the players that Taylor wants, but there's still plenty of time left, which is true. Shelley says injuries killed us last season, makes you wonder where we might have finished. Yeah,
there's that too.
Sam Zara said we've got an amazing defence this year. Let's hope they all stay fit. Stephen Adams, whimper and Morrison are 2 words that just don't go together. That's why Matt Taylor went so hard to try to sign someone like Sean Morrison. That's exactly the reason.
Yeah.
Anything else we want to touch on before we get out of here?
It's time, isn't it? Come on.
Get excited, boys and girls. It's time
Here we go.
to come back. Thank you all for being with us. Don't forget the scouting report is out on Friday. If you go on the YouTube channel, it's out from I've scheduled it for very early in the morning. So when you wake up on Friday, there's 15 minutes Rotherham United content for you to consume on there. We will be back on Sunday evening, which will be to review the Stoke game, whatever happens. And we'll also have a bit of a small preview of the Morecambe game. Got Morecambe Cup, haven't we?
Yes, we've got Morecambe Cup. We have the Morecambe Cup every season.
Obviously. Yes, yeah. Good point. Please do subscribe to YouTube if you haven't done already. We're creeping up on 1150 or something like that. Subscribers, so that's gradually keep going up. So please do keep subscribing. Don't keep subscribing. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe. You can't do it more than once unless you use somebody else's device, which is an option. And if you're listening on iTunes and Spotify, make sure you've subscribed, and please do give us a 5-star rating if you're on there as well. Danny, thank you very much for being with us, and let's get the season on.
Yeah, let's kick off the season in style. I'm gutted I can't be there, but I will certainly be listening on iFollow whilst getting ready for work. And hopefully I can get it on the sound system, but I don't know how illegal that is yet.
Work away. I'm sure you can work somewhere.
We'll find a way.
Yeah. Nick, thank you very much. And it's going to be exciting, isn't it?
I can't wait. I'm really looking forward to it. No, I mean that. I didn't mean that to sound sarcastic. I genuinely am looking forward to it. So.
When you say something, people will just assume you're being a bit sarcastic.
Yeah.
I'll tell you one thing I'm looking forward to, though. And that's wearing a Rotherham shirt at work tomorrow whilst Chef Wednesday are playing.
Danny might not make it till to Saturday.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, right.
Thank you everybody for being with us. And thank you for sticking with us through the summer and joining us again. We will see you next time, and up the Millers.
Up the Millers.
Up the Millers.
Into Wales through a goal, slots it beyond Foderingham, and the Millers are in front in the South Yorkshire derby. And for the first time in 42 years, Rotherham United win at Bramall Lane. On the edge of the box, the Dauphin, he can hit them, and he does. The Dauphin has scored an absolute screamer for Rotherham United. Rotherham United have secured their championship status for next season.